stand in the spotlight. I'm supposed to stand in the spotlight tonight. Can you hear me? Yes. Good. So, welcome to the first talk of our 2024-25 season. I'm Brian McCrow, I'm president of this society. And I'd like to welcome our new members and those who may have joined us tonight to listen to and support Taylor Winyard, our speaker. And it's great to have a full house for our first talk. I'll give a brief introduction to Taylor, and she will talk for about 1 hour, giving us time for questions and answers, enabling us to finish by about 9 p.m. We will record this talk, and we'll make it available online via YouTube on a donation basis. Donation could be zero, we're very kind that way. But don't take that as a policy. So, Taylor is a director at Stobo Castle Health Spa, and home in the water as a former sprint kayaker. She's one of 12 athletes fast-tracked onto the UK Sports Girls for Gold Talent ID program launched by British Canoeing in 2014. In 2019, her adventurous spirit took her to the summit of Mount Kilimanjaro, and then across the Atlantic Ocean in 2021. In June this year, she broke the record for the fastest female trio to cross the Pacific Ocean. The Mid-Pacific is a relatively new and untouched route, and one of their first tasks was to take on the famous wall of wind off the California coast, which can easily upset boats, as well as they were faced with the presence of sharks and orca whales. So Taylor will give us an insight into what drives her to achieve her goals, the lessons she has learned on the way. She will share how her crossings tested the limits of physical endurance, mental resilience, and the importance of teamwork in the face of adversity. If you suffer from seasickness, you may wish to pop a pill before the introductory videos. Thank you very much. Over to you, Taylor.
Wow, what an intro. Thank you so much, Brian, and thank you all for coming. It's a real privilege to be invited tonight to tell you a little bit about my crazy ocean rowing story. To give you a bit of context and an introduction to ocean rowing, I thought I'd kick off by showing you a summary video of the last couple of years, so hopefully this will work. be glad to know that my hands have made a full recovery. I love looking back at all of the footage, but I think it's very important to point out that that was a highlight reel. That was basically all my best bits. And the journey to getting here has not been easy at all. I feel like I've experienced the highest highs and the lowest lows in sport. And so tonight I thought I could kind of talk you through my roller coaster journey. If I rewind a little bit, I've not always been a rower. I think that's probably quite a good place to start. Growing up, I always did land-based sports. So at school, I played a lot of hockey, and outside of school, I did pony club tetrathlon, which is horse riding, running, swimming, and shooting. And at this point, I truly believed that my sporting career had already peaked. But in my final year at uni, in 2014, I was selected and fast-tracked onto the British Canoeing Girls for Gold squad, which was essentially a talent identification program that would take me from being a complete beginner in sprint kayaking to the Tokyo Olympics within 6 years. And I gave it absolutely everything. But after 6 years, I didn't make it. No excuses, I just wasn't fast enough. And at the time, how fast my boat went was absolutely everything to me. I think I was living in a little kayaking bubble down in Nottingham. And so it was heartbreaking at the time, and definitely made me fall out of love with competitive sport for a long time. So at the end of 2019, I made the tough decision to hang up my paddles and move back up to Scotland. And within a week of moving home, I was on a plane to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. I think friends and family were quite concerned. I was fit from kayaking, but I'd done no specific training. Hadn't even been up Arthur's Seat. But I think I just really needed to test myself off the water and try to enjoy exercise again without any pressure. And if I'm honest, climbing Kilimanjaro was the best thing that I could have done at the time. It definitely made me realise that there's a lot more to life than kayaking and trying to make it to the Olympic Games. It also made me realise how important it is to step out your comfort zone sometimes and do something that completely scares you. And I think this is probably when I caught the bug for extreme endurance. And that brings me to ocean rowing. The annual Atlantic Challenge is known as the world's toughest rowing race. It's a 3,000-mile unsupported row across the Atlantic Ocean. I joined a team called the Atlantic Nomads, and with my two teammates, we set off from the Canary Islands in December of 2021, and we crossed the line in Antigua in late January 2022, 40 days and 37 minutes later. We rowed continuously for 2 hours on, 1 hour off around the clock. We spent Christmas Day at sea. You'll be able to see that I definitely got the short straw with the Christmas Day hats. We became the fastest mixed trio to ever cross the Atlantic Ocean. and in doing so set a new world record, which still stands at the moment. I'm sure it will be broken at some point. And I was also the first female to finish the race, which was quite a cool claim to fame. At the time, I thought it was the hardest thing that I'd ever done. But now that I've crossed the Pacific Ocean, it was actually a very smooth crossing. Things actually went very well for us. So tonight I'm actually going to talk a lot more about the Pacific race. But before I do, here are some photos from the finish line of the Atlantic. Relief. COVID times. I added this one in. Yeah, this is what happens if you don't take your shoes off for 40 days. So we're now going to talk about the Pacific. After the Atlantic, I promised everyone that I would never go to sea again. I'm sure Mum and Dad can vouch for that. But last year, two girls who were actually in my Atlantic race in different teams, they reached out to me and they said, "Taylor, would you do one more?" And they wanted to row across the Mid-Pacific in the summer of 2024. And when I saw the message come through, I just threw my phone away because I knew that my gut feeling would be yes. But I know that I can be quite impulsive, like doing Kilimanjaro. So I needed to check with the family if it was okay if I could do one more. And I think their big concern was, could my body go through it again? The Pacific Challenge is a 2,800 mile unsupported row from Monterey in California to the Hawaiian island of Kaua'i. As Brian said, the Pacific is a relatively uncharted route and renowned for much more extreme conditions. And what we faced was definitely extreme. After a year of training, we set off on the 8th of June this summer and crossed the finish line 38 days later. This is a clip of us setting off from Monterey in California. Little did we know what was to come. Clueless. And this is a screenshot of what the dot watchers at home could see. That's us in the pale pink. And as you can see, we had a very strong start. We cut the corner out of Monterey and headed directly south. It's actually quite fascinating for me to be able to see this now, to see what tactical decisions teams made and what route they took coming out of Monterey Bay. Each team had a weather router, so that's somebody back at home who monitors the forecasts and essentially gives you instructions on what course to take. So although every team was heading for the exact same coordinates in Hawaii, we all took a very different route. It can be a gamble trusting your weather router, and I was certainly very nervous to trust who we had for the Pacific. But I really had no choice but to trust Charlie, our weather router. So as an example, through the GPS, he would send us degrees to aim for. So he may say to us, morning girls, hope you're all okay, stick on 240 degrees true today, you're going to hit a really unfavourable current tonight, so more horsepower. That's what he said to us all the time, more horsepower. And we were trying our absolute best, but yeah. Anyway, getting into the race, it was so tough. It's only been 10 weeks since I got back on land, so I'm definitely not 100% myself yet. And if I'm honest, I've actually blurred quite a lot of the race out. If things could have gone wrong for us, they did. We had so many setbacks, but we never stopped believing, and we certainly never stopped rowing. When things went wrong, we had to react as quickly as possible and adapt to what was in front of us. And for me, I think that was the hardest part about this row. There were so many uncontrollables. We faced extreme weather and huge seas for weeks longer than we ever expected. We were told to expect the absolute worst for the first 7 to 10 days, but really it was just relentless for the entire crossing. It didn't stop at all. This here is a clip from the first week. I hope you're not feeling too seasick. So to give you an insight into our first week at sea, on day 2 our steering system broke. On day 4 my right oar snapped. On day 6 we capsized. On day 8 we capsized again, and my shoes went overboard. And that was just the first 10 days at sea. This is a photo of me trying to release the snapped oar, which is not easy when the boat is like bouncing around. This is me on day 5. I have absolutely no memory of this at all. It looks like I'm on my off shift and just passed out before I even got in the cabin. This photo here is the morning after our first capsize. Not looking too great, to be honest. I'm wearing a survival suit because I was so cold when we capsized. Our jacket and everything was soaking wet, so what I'm wearing is just really, really damp. And this photo here is my shoe situation. So after we capsized, my shoes had gone overboard. I actually thought it was quite a genius idea at the time, but used an old snack packs, essentially plastic bags, and put some tape around my ankles to keep warm, because at this point in the race it was so cold and there's nothing worse than having cold feet. So that's what I did for about a week, and I then started getting the worst bruising in my heels, which was really uncomfortable. So at that point, my teammate Jess remembered that she had a pair of spare shoes a week later, and they were 2 sizes too small. So I did some DIY and made them kind of fit. So I wore the shoes on the right for the entire crossing. My toes just poked out the top. To go on to the capsizes, they are a bit of a blur, but I can talk you through them as best as I can remember. The first one, it happened on day 6, and I actually had a feeling that we were going to go over that night. It was a really wild night, and there were gusts of winds hitting us across the boat, particularly from the starboard side. And so Charlotte and I were rowing at the time, and we basically had a conversation about going over, and we visualised what to do in that situation, because it's not something you can practice capsizing around the UK, not in extreme weather. So we visualised going over, and then we got prepared on deck. So we both tightened our harnesses. We then checked all the hatch doors and made sure that they were as firmly shut as possible. And then we just clipped on everything that we could see on deck. So whether that was a water bottle, seats, foot plates, beanbag, everything was clipped on. So essentially we were as ready as we could be. So when we actually went over, there was almost like a weird sense of like calm in the chaos. And with the impact, we had absolutely no chance. Charlotte and I went flying through the railings and into the sea. And it was pitch black at the time. I think it was about 3 o'clock in the morning. And the rest, I think, was just natural instinct. We just climbed back on the boat and then got our weight over to the other side to bring her back level. We then remembered that our third teammate had been upside down in the cabin. So we checked on Jess to see that she was okay. And then we then checked that all the equipment was still on deck. And then I think we just looked at each other and we said, are you okay? Yeah, I'm okay. Right, let's keep rowing. There was no choice but to keep rowing, and we were also so cold after having just been in the water, so I think it was just a case of row just to keep warm. For me, the second capsize was a lot worse. I wasn't expecting it. I was actually on my off shift. So I was in the stern cabin and Jess was in the bow cabin, because during the night, for a few hours, we tried to do a bit of solo rowing. So again, this was during the middle of the night. I was in a whole world of pain with my hands. So I just sat up to take my nightly dose of 2 paracetamol, 2 ibuprofen and 2 caffeine tablets. So I just sat up in quite an unstable position, and with the impact of the capsize, hit my head pretty badly off the cabin wall. But I knew that Charlotte was out there by herself, and that was one of the worst feelings in the world. Being in the cabin, Jess and I were pretty helpless. There was nothing that we could do, because if we'd opened the cabin door, we would have flooded and then run the risk of sinking. So I remember shouting out to Charlotte to see if she was okay, and I could hear her, so I was like, well, that's a good sign. And apart from being a bit shaken up, luckily she was okay. We then did our checks. So I was out on deck at this point, and I was going through all the equipment with her. Yeah, we've got that, we've got our seats. And I was like, do you know what, you're freezing, let me get on the oars. So I started getting ready to get on the oars, got my jacket on, and that's when I realised that my shoes were nowhere to be seen. So bearing in mind the second capsize was on day 8, and our whole crossing was 38 days. So I had 30 days without my shoes, so less than ideal. And actually, I was speaking to the girls recently, and they said, Taylor, you dealt with that so well. I was like, well, there wasn't really much I could do, in that situation. So we had no choice but to crack on. Not only did I have to crack on without my shoes, But I also had to deal with quite a lot of pain with my hands. So turn away if you're squeamish. This might not be very nice. I don't think I actually realised how bad they were at the time. If I'm honest, I think I became a little bit numb to it all. Here's a video of me chatting nonsense about breakfasts. I think the sleep deprivation has definitely kicked in at this point. Good morning from the Pacific Ocean. It's day 18. It's day 17, and we are just having breakfast, or about to have breakfast. We have a morning oats with raspberry, chocolate granola, and porridge with apple, cranberry, and cinnamon. The girls are on the board, all in it, right? Good morning! As you can see, it's a real beautiful day. We had a lovely sunrise. I think I am actually trying to be funny about how terrible the weather was, and we actually never had a sunrise. So I think I am trying to be sarcastic, but I just look like I've lost the plot. On the subject of food, we ate so much food. I don't think I've ever eaten that much in my entire life. We try to eat at least 3 main meals per day, and a snack pack as well. So that was around 5,000 calories a day. So obviously a lot more than normal. They were dehydrated meals that we added water to hydrate them. And our snack packs were filled with things like nuts, protein bars, sweets. We were sponsored by Walker Shortbread, so I had at least 4 biscuits a day. And yeah, essentially unhealthy snacks that kept the calories up. So to have enough water to be able to drink every day, and to add to our meals, we had a water maker on board, because there's no way that you could, row that much water across with you. And essentially it was a desalinator. So when we switched it on, our boats were solar powered, so we would switch it on normally in the middle of the day when the sun was obviously at its brightest. And when we switched it on, a pump sucked the seawater up through a membrane to produce drinking water. Arguably the most important piece of equipment that we had on board. So on the subject of things going wrong for us, this is a squid, and one day I was on my off shift. I was running the water maker, and there was suddenly this just awful smell, like really awful smell, and I went to investigate. So not easy when the boat is bouncing around and you've got your head, in a cabin. And I went through the filter and found this squid that we'd obviously sucked up. So I think we had been drinking squid water for a few days, which is awful. So really it was just like another day, another challenge. Going back to the capsizes, although they were pretty traumatizing at the time, I think they actually happened early on enough in the race that we were still firing on all cylinders. And I think because they happened early on enough, we were able to kind of park it and bounce back a lot better than we would have had it been later in the race. If I'm honest, I actually think our lowest point was around day 20. So that was essentially roughly halfway. I remember Charlotte and I were rowing and we were just getting thrown around everywhere. I think we were in a really unfavourable current as well. And this huge wave hit us and we both just went flying off our seats. Both really hurt ourselves. That was a real low point. And I remember Charlotte started crying, and then Jessie would be in the cabin, she came out, she was crying, and I was like, oh my God, like, we are broken. So I was trying to hold it together. But later that day, my brother sent me a quote through the satellite phone, and it probably was actually a real turning point for us. So it said, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. And in that moment, that was exactly what we needed to hear. I never actually thought my brother could be so wise, but he was right. We couldn't control the weather ever, and we also couldn't control what other teams were doing, but we could control how we responded. So we had a good cry. I think I called home. Probably regret that because there's nothing that my mum and dad could have done at the time, and we just kept fighting. At this point, we had to find another gear, and we did. So the next video is me battling the elements later that day. And this next video is one from during the night. I think it's probably important to point out that over half the row was in darkness. I am a very proud Scot. We played the Braveheart soundtrack at least once a day. If I was ever struggling or having a bad shift, that always picked me up. And although my teammates were not Scottish, I think they actually really enjoyed it. We did everything in our power to make that boat go faster. I really wish there was a video of me going through the girls' snack packs and chucking all the nuts overboard. I would do anything to try and make us lighter. We also played around with the wind angle. We played around with our stroke length. Sometimes we would row long, sometimes we would row short. And we also became obsessed with trying to keep the hull of the boat as smooth as possible. So you can get a build-up of barnacles on the hull of your boat. So what you do is you go into the water, one of you is on shark watch, one of you is kind of gently tapping the boat along, and one of you is in the water. And you use an ice scraper, and you basically just try and knock all these barnacles off. And it does actually make a difference. It might be psychological, but we did anything and everything to try and go as fast as possible. Some ideas were better than others, but I guess what I'm trying to say is we were looking for the 1%, and the small margins that probably wouldn't have made a difference to our speed over 10 minutes, but over the course of 24 hours could have added 0.5 of a knot to make us go faster and ultimately chase down the record. I really just didn't want to have any regrets out there. I think for me, regret is one of the worst feelings in the world. And I remember many a conversation with the girls about having no regrets out there. I think we even wrote no regrets on the cabin wall. I knew that if we gave it everything and left it all out there, whatever happened results-wise, if we gave it our best, I could be at peace with the final outcome. So when I look back now, I could not have given any more to that role. Physically, I was pretty broken and probably mentally too. And that is actually a very satisfying feeling now. These are my teammates. Of course, there were some tough conversations and tough moments living on a boat with two people for 6 weeks. We saw the best and the worst of each other, but we had to survive and we had to work together in a high-risk environment. For example, if one of us had forgotten to wear a harness, or if one of us had left the hatch door open when we capsized, I can promise you I would not be standing here tonight. So teamwork and quick decision making under pressure was everything for us. I trusted the girls with my life, and I think they trusted me with theirs, hopefully. We could not have any egos out there. It was just everything on the line for the team. I probably haven't shared a lot of fun and positive stories about this row, and that's because there actually weren't many. But I will share these videos. These videos are when we were on a collision course with a 300-metre long container ship called George II. And I'm really glad Jess is not in the audience tonight because she would kill me for this video. Yeah, I'll play them. Wow. It's a considerably larger baby than my father. Well, now.
Thank you so much. It really means a lot to us.
I don't know if you heard that, but that was the captain of George II speaking on the radio, and he said, "You're doing amazingly well. You're heroes for us all." So what was initially quite a scary moment, Charlotte and I were rowing, and Jess popped her head out of the cabin. Our alarm was going off, and we had an AIS alarm, which is essentially a tracker for other boats, and she could see that we were on a collision course with George II, who was going 20 knots, and we were probably going about 2.5 knots. But after the conversation, I think he actually started the radio conversation by saying, am I speaking to Taylor, Charlotte, or Jess? And what was incredible was that he was actually following the race. So he'd purposely gone off course to come towards us, so it was on purpose. And he said to us, "Do you mind if I come a bit closer?" We were like, okay. So that was as far as close as it came towards us. But after a really tough journey, it was such a big morale booster, because when you've only seen sea and sky for weeks, to see something like that was incredible, and also just to hear somebody on the radio as well. This video here was also quite a special moment. So this was on day 32, and the closer that we got to Hawaii, the more birds we saw. So that was a good sign. Day 32. Actually, on that, I know that Brian touched on orca whales and sharks. That was our wildlife highlight. Flying fish and birds were as exciting as it got. These photos here, that's me on the left. That's me in the cabin looking at the screen on the right hand side, so I'm just checking the navigation. This is 35 miles out from Hawaii, and to see, so what we'd seen for the whole crossing, which is this white square with our little triangular boat, it was so exciting to be able to see an island coming in. So we knew at this point we were pretty close. And as you would have seen on the video earlier, we did eventually make it. Crossing the finish line is such an overwhelming mix of emotions, but really just pride and relief that you've made it. It was such a great crossing. If I've not made that clear, it was very great. So seeing land again was very overwhelming. And I don't actually remember this on the Atlantic, but on the Pacific, we suddenly had this incredible woodland smell as we approached the island. And that's something that I'll remember forever. It was the most amazing feeling and the most amazing smell. These are some photos from the finish line. So Kaua'i, you don't need to row there, but if you're going to go on holiday, I would definitely recommend the island of Kaua'i. It's the most beautiful island. Just on this photo, I do look very happy, but what you can't see is that I'm burning my right hand, so I'm standing being like, I am safe, and actually have the worst scars in my hand from the finish line, but had to get it for the photo. And we set 2 new world records. That was never the first goal. The first goal was to get across safely. Our second goal was to stay friends. I don't think rowing is worth losing a friendship. And our third goal was to try and get the world record if it was up for grabs. So we actually set 2 new world records. The first one was for the fastest a female trio has ever crossed the mid-Pacific, and the second world record was titled fastest overall trio to row across the mid-Pacific, which basically means that we beat the male record by 15 hours. So very satisfying, especially when one of the male teams who came in after us just came up to me and shook my hand, and he was just like, fair play. So very satisfying. don't get me wrong, breaking world records is amazing, but much more importantly, doing both rows has made me appreciate the little things in life so much more. Things like a bed, sleep, a shower, a toilet. Don't worry, I will not talk about the toilet situation tonight. For me, it's so much more about the journey, the things that I've learned along the way, and the friends that I've made. Tom, James, Charlotte and Jess, my teammates from both rows, will definitely be friends for life. I'm very grateful that we've got each other, because as much as I can stand here and try and tell you all about it, it's very hard to describe what we went through. Going back to kayaking, I actually owe a lot to that programme and that chapter of my life as well. Although I didn't make it to the Olympics, I definitely don't have any regrets from all the training. I definitely became a much stronger person and stronger athlete because of it. My teammates said that I could actually stand up for myself by the end of the programme, so that was a good sign. But I actually think that the years of intense training, the horrific pressure that we had from our coaches, and all of the tough times around selection actually set me up perfectly to be able to cope mentally and physically at sea. So if you take anything away from tonight, I would say that the biggest lessons that I've learned through sport and ocean rowing are, one, teamwork is everything. My old coach used to say, a happy boat is a fast boat, and I would completely agree with that. Number two, setbacks in sports and in life are inevitable. I'll admit that I've definitely had probably more bad races and results than good results and good races over the years. But if you're willing to fight, it's never over until it's over. Thirdly, step out your comfort zone, because you never know what's around the corner. I certainly never thought that I was going to get into ocean rowing at 29. Before I finish, I should probably give a shout out to my mum and dad, who are in the audience up there. I certainly would not have achieved what I have had without their support and encouragement, so thank you very much. And thank you. If you've got any questions, hit me up.
Shelley, that was excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I'm sure there's going to be loads of questions. So if you've got a question, put your hand up and we'll get a microphone to you so everyone can hear. I've got someone at the back who will come to you. Thank you.
Taylor, thank you so much. That was absolutely fantastic. The best talk I've been to. Really, you're an absolute inspiration, so thank you. I go to the gym 3 times a week, and included in that is 30 minutes of rowing. After 10 minutes, I'm already thinking, 5 minutes to go and I'm halfway there. How on earth do Did you put that from day one, day two, week one, etc.?
Yeah, I guess after we set off, we didn't really have a choice. I think we passed the time by sometimes chatting to each other. We would play music. That helped a lot. Although I said our water maker was probably the most important thing we had on board, our speaker was probably a close second. We also listened to podcasts as well. So I think we passed the time by trying to distract ourselves from what we were doing. And also, it's so much easier to give up when you're by yourself, but I think because we were a team, my teammates would never let me sleep in, so you would never get out of it, and I think that's what kept us going.
Thank you. It's a lovely story that you've told. I'm intrigued on one part of it. It's the second time that the boat turned over. You and Jez were in your cabins, I think, and Charlotte was in the water. How did Charlotte turn the boat back? Were you and Jez able to do anything from your cabin to help her?
No. The boats are designed to self-right, so it did actually come up itself. She just then had to climb on by herself, which is quite a struggle, because I think, day 8, I think by that point your arms are quite weak as well, so getting yourself on the boat is quite a challenge. But no, by the time I came out the cabin, she was already back on deck. So she did it all herself, but it was the worst feeling ever to be in the cabin and not able to do anything when she was out there.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, Taylor. As you were rowing, did you have any information about where the other boats were?
Yeah, we did. We had our weather router, so Charlie would send through like a text message type message, and he would say, so there's a team called Wild Waves, so he would just write WW 2 miles to your east west. Actually, I think that was the closest that they ever got, was 2 miles. Or he would say, there was a boat called the Salty Sappers, which were from the army, and he would say, they're 50 miles ahead, more horsepower. So we had that, but we also had a beacon, which was a satellite disc that we could aim up to the sky, and it meant that we were able to get WhatsApp and access to the app that I kind of touched on at the start. So it was called YB Races, and so we could see what everyone at home could see. So we did become slightly obsessed with checking that, and frustrated that we couldn't get onto it sometimes. So that was really what we could see. And then if a boat got within 5 miles, it would pop up on the AIS, which is the automatic identification system, and that's where we were able to see George 2 coming towards us. So we could actually see 2 girls at one point on the AIS, and the alarm would bleep. So a few different ways of knowing where everyone was.
Another one down here. Oh no, she's going up top.
I can shout. You said you broke an oar at one stage. I'm wondering if you had to repair or can you carry spares or anything?
Yeah, so we had 2 spare sets. So there's lots of race rules, and the inspection beforehand is very, very thorough. we actually had 3 rowing positions in our boat, so we could have gone like 3 up if we wanted to, but we always just went 2 at a time, which meant that we actually had 2 spare sets, so we had 4 sets of oars, so 8 oars in total. I wish I actually had a better photo. That wasn't the best one to have used, but the actual oar was completely snapped. So the blade part of the oar is somewhere in the Pacific. But what I was trying to do was release it from the gate. So because it had broken at such a awful angle, it was jammed in that. So that was a brand new oar went into that rowing gate.
Because it's easier for me, I'm going to pass on to this gentleman.
I've got 2 questions. You mentioned that before you climbed Kilimanjaro, you hadn't even done a third seat. What was the furthest you rowed before you took on the Atlantic? And my second question is, how does a team come about for an event like this? Were these made up of people that you'd met on the Olympic training programme, or just how did you get together? How was it done? And just training for it generally, what was it, together or individual?
So to answer your first question, Kilimanjaro, can you just repeat your first question?
It was you hadn't even done a third seat
Arthur
before
seat.
that, so you hadn't done any significant point. Had you done much significant
Rowing, that was it. Sorry, I knew that I was trying to get the connection between Kilimanjaro and rowing. So I actually learned to row at uni just to make friends, not particularly competitively. So I had done a bit of rowing, and I think just the full-time training from kayaking really set me up well, because I joined the male team 6 months before the race, which is unheard of. I don't think anybody's come in so close to the race. But I think because I'd trained at that intensity, I was able to pick up the rowing quite quickly. So that definitely made a big difference. So the physical side of things was actually quite quick to learn, but then I had to pick up the navigational skills, the sea survival, that kind of thing. So that was quite an intense 6 months. And then to answer your second question, how did I meet my teammates? So when I moved back up to Scotland, did Kilimanjaro, I had been following the Atlantic race for years and came up with the idea to try and find a team to do it. And both my brothers were like, absolutely not. They've got a fear of open water, so they wouldn't have been a huge amount of help. And my friends were like, no way am I doing that with you. So I actually contacted the race organisers and said, I'm looking to form a team, or I'm looking for teammates. Do you know of anybody? And I'd always imagined doing it as part of a female team. And the race organisers emailed back to say, there is actually a male team looking for someone. Here's their email address. So I thought about it for a few days, and then I was like, oh, do you know what? I've got nothing to lose. I emailed them clarifying that Taylor was a female. And it was between myself and a guy for a while, and I was convinced that they were going to pick him, and then they picked me. So that was quite a quick friendship, because I only came in 6 months before, but a lot of people had said, don't do a challenge like this with your bestest of friends, because you do run the risk of, you know, falling out and going separate ways afterwards. Like, luckily that wasn't the case for us. So that was the story with the Atlantic, and then with the Pacific, both Charlotte and Jess had rowed the Atlantic in my year. So I had met them at the start line. We didn't spend a huge amount of time together, and then we had a really good night at our awards night. And I actually don't believe this, but Charlotte said that after a few drinks I'd already said yes to her, but I'm not so sure about that. So yeah, I guess for both rows, quite quick friendships, but you get to know each other very quickly. So I would now say that they're the four of them are four of my closest friends now.
Hi. I just wanted to say, superb talk, absolutely gripping. And I have two questions. I'm back here.
Sorry, I was looking for it.
It's all right, thank you. The first one is you're in the middle of the ocean, something, medical emergency or something. How far away is help? And my second question is, what's next?
Help is quite far away. Both rows are unsupported. So going back to the essential equipment we have to have on board, we had a medical kit which had antibiotics, bandages, things like that. There was also a race doctor, so using my hands as an example, I was sending photos of my hands to the race doctor, and I actually think I did need antibiotics, but he made me hang off because we only had a limited amount of antibiotics with us, and if we'd used them on my hands during the first week, but 3 weeks in, one of the girls had an abscess in her mouth, that would have probably been more important to have had the antibiotics. So for minor things, we had to be self-sufficient. If it was something major, we could have made a mayday call, and because it's unsupported, it's like a maritime rule for if you're in need of help, the nearest boat to you would rescue you. If we received help from another boat, we would have been disqualified. So it's kind of making that decision of how serious it is. So that's to answer your first question. The second question, what's next? I'm not sure. I think it's still quite raw. I only got back on land 10 weeks ago. To all family and friends, the door to ocean rowing is closed, but to everyone else, I'm not sure. The race organiser keeps dangling the carrot with the Indian Ocean, but I really need to remember how traumatic this one was, and I think you hang on to the highlights, and the finish line was definitely the highlight, so that's what you remember, and I think when you do something like this, it's hard to adapt to life again when you get back on land. I think for all of us now, I am lucky that I'm going through this with my teammates, but you're trying to find a high in every day because nothing will be as high as what you've been through, and that will die down over time. I remember it took me about 3 or 4 months to get over that after the Atlantic, so I reckon by Christmas time I'll be fine out partying and not interested in another row. I'm not sure. We'll see. If you read about something in a few years' time, I've obviously got the urge to do another one, but I'm not sure. We'll see.
2 questions. What was the fully loaded weight of your boat before you stepped on it? And 2, what state did the palm of your hands get in?
Did you ask what weight was the boat?
Yes.
I actually don't know exactly.
Fully loaded.
But it was it was very heavy with all of our food and equipment. I'm not sure the exact weight. It would have been actually quite interesting to have compared all the boats, because we're convinced that some of the boats were lighter than they should have been. It was probably a lot lighter after I started chucking the nuts overboard. And your second question, sorry, can you remind me? Oh, hands, yeah. So the palms of my hands were actually not too bad. The other side of my hands were in a state, and I think what had happened was, on the first day we had sun cream on our face, never thought to put it on my hands, and we really badly burnt our hands. Then during the first week, with all of the knockdowns and capsizes, I think because the skin was so sensitive from the burns, we just cut our hands. And actually a lot of people have asked me, like, were you scared out there? And I wasn't actually scared of the sea. I was scared to hurt myself again, and it was agony. Every time you went over, it would reopen. The cuts then turned into salt sores, and yeah, so I've definitely been left with a few scars now, but they're actually looking so much better than they were. So yeah, it was hard trying to get jackets on and things without, opening them, but yeah, the palms were much better than the other side.
Hi, first of all, I'd like to say how amazing.
Excuse me, Mary, hang on until you get the mic.
Oh, can you not hear me?
No.
Yeah, I'd just like to say, Taylor, how amazing the talk was and how inspirational it was. I have so many questions I'd like to ask, but what was the one that was most... yes, having had the experience of the two crossings and thinking about the Indian Ocean, how would you prepare, or would you prepare any differently for the next crossing?
Oh, good question. I guess after having done 2 rows, I know what food I really like to eat, which makes a massive difference, and that was the advantage going from the Atlantic to the Pacific, because on the Atlantic, a lot of food that I thought I liked on land when I was at sea, I just couldn't stomach. So I absolutely loved my snack pack on the Pacific. So I guess you've got the advantage of knowing what you like to eat, but also like what clothes you like to wear, whether that's loose shorts, whether that's tight shorts, just as an example. I don't know if I really didn't have any regrets for the Pacific. There's nothing that I wish we'd done in that moment. I guess pick your team wisely would probably be what I would say. We got on really well. There were challenges that I won't go into tonight, but I think your team is the most important thing. If that's right, you can achieve anything. I think that's the most important thing. I've not really answered your question that well, but pick your team wisely.
If I could just ask another question, it would be, did you ever fear for your survival, where to the point where winning didn't become the most important thing, but surviving did?
Yeah, I think there was definitely a shift from competing to surviving. I actually never felt really scared, and that's because we were so on it with our harnesses and the cabin doors, to the point where it nearly caused arguments, because your teammate would say to you quite abruptly to shut the cabin door, and I'm like, well, I am doing that. But we were so nervous that we would make an error and that would have been game over. So I think it was almost like getting into your car and automatically putting your seatbelt on. When I would come out of the cabin, I would just put it on, and then I would look down and be like, yeah, I've definitely got that on. So I think because we were so on the ball with that, I knew that if we went over, it's not the end of the world, like your boat will come back up. And so I'd never, and that's like, I honestly didn't feel that scared. What scared me more was around halfway when we were really, really broken, and both girls were crying, and I remember thinking like, am I losing them, a little bit, and that scared me probably more. But yeah, I think because we were so on the ball with our making sure everything was done correctly, I actually feared for the other teams, because I think it's probably not coincidence that the first 5 boats that arrived in Hawaii all had someone that had done a row before. The boats that were doing their first ocean actually really, really struggled, and I remember thinking so many times, I hope everyone is safe, because I think having done the Atlantic, I was much more aware of the dangers, so I think that definitely was an advantage. Yeah, I guess it's all in preparation. I think if you do that well, you're set up to be okay out there.
Another question, please.
Hi, Sheila. Just want to say again, what an excellent talk. I've seen firsthand how much hard work and effort was put into the physical preparation for the challenge, but how did you prepare yourself mentally for 40 days at sea?
Poor Jean witnessed many a rowing session in Stovo's gym in the prep. I'm not sure you can prepare mentally. I think the physical lends into the mental. I think if you sign up for something like this, you're probably mentally quite strong. And to do a second one, you're either a bit crazy or you're mentally quite strong. It's tough. It is really tough mentally, and in the Pacific was definitely so much harder than the Atlantic. I guess you rely on each other. There were times that I was maybe having a bad day, but the girls were having good days, and so we used each other to get across. If all 3 of us were having a bad day, that was really not great. And I think we were just really honest as well. So we had conversations where, like, I'd be rowing with one of the girls and I'd turn around and she's just bawling her eyes out, and I was like, are you okay? And then we'd like talk about it. So I think we were very open, or the girls were probably more open than I was. I think if I was going to have a cry, I probably went into the cabin. But we would say if we were struggling. So there were times that I remember Jess was rowing at one point and she was just falling asleep on the oars, and I was just like, get in the cabin, like, there's no point you being out here. And I think it was just everything for the team. So yeah, mentally, I think just being vocal with how you were feeling made a big difference.
So which of the 2 teams you rowed in was the easiest?
Atlantic. Yeah, and that's not just because they were male. Yeah, I mean, there were challenges on both parts, but the conditions made the Pacific so much more challenging. Yeah, to touch on the male-female thing, I learned a lot through doing it with Tom and James, and compare it with the girls. I think this is a massive generalisation, but we definitely were prone to overthinking things. So for example, our logo, our Pacific Trio logo, we spent about 6 months making this logo perfect. Whereas with Tom and James, our logo was black and white, job done kind of thing. And so we got stuff done more efficiently, I think. or we got with the boys, we were quicker getting things done, but there was maybe more detail with the girls. So I think there were advantages and disadvantages of both. But yeah, I learned a huge amount through both experiences.
Now you keep mentioning the organisers. So what did they do for you?
Charged us a huge amount to do the race. No, but they're actually so helpful. So we've obviously got to know them very well because it was the same team that managed us for the Atlantic as for the Pacific. They meet you before you fly out to check that all your equipment is there, and flag up anything before the race. Then at the start line, they go around checking all the boats and quizzing you, like they would say, right Taylor, jump in the cabin and plot in the coordinates of this marker. Right, okay, the boat's gone over, what would you do in this situation? So although it's stressful at the time and they feel that they're testing you, they do make it safer because they make you go into the fine details. And then when you're actually at sea, you speak to a safety officer once a day. I actually happened to only speak once because I was always rowing when he called. But he would normally call at 12 o'clock UTC, and he would just say, oh, hi Jess, how are you all? How's the boat? How's Taylor? How are her hands? Is she all right? And you know, if I had been like seasick for 5 days straight, that would be a bit of a red flag, and so they would be checking in on you. So although we didn't have a safety boat with us, we were on the phone to them a lot, and sometimes actually when we weren't getting enough feedback from our weather router, the safety team would say, look girls, don't stress, you're actually in a current at the moment, that's why your boat is spinning around, and so they would give you really useful information. And I guess they're the last people that you see when you set off, and they're one of the first people that you see when you make land. So yeah, I have a huge amount of time for the safety team, and we are celebrating in New York in a couple of weeks' time, which will be fun.
So one last question, perhaps. There's one just in front of you.
Taylor, short question. What was your first meal when you hit land after both rows?
Okay, so for the Atlantic, we were greeted with a burger, but we actually made land at 8 in the morning. So that was not something that I wanted at the time. I don't think I actually ate it. I can't remember, Mum, if you remember, but yeah, we were presented with this, but actually, go back to the Atlantic, because it was COVID times, we weren't allowed to hug our family until we'd had this burger. And so like Mum was standing there with her mask on, and I remember thinking, this is ridiculous that I'm about to eat this burger and I've not even like hugged my mum. So that was the Atlantic, and then everyone just kept running over being like, would you like a coffee, would you like a beer, would you like a Diet Coke? Everyone was trying to give you something, and I think it was just quite overwhelming. With the Pacific, I think we'd said that we were really craving like a barbecue. So we had all this like chicken and kind of meat, and then we were also, because we hadn't eaten anything fresh for 38 days, we were like, we just really want like fruit salad. So I think we had like big chunks of fruit. And then that evening, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think my Uncle Alan cooked barbecue. So I think we had more barbecue food. So, but I'd actually eaten so well in the Pacific that I was quite content. I really just wanted to, see family and friends again. And the beer went down very well, actually.
Well, excellent. Thank you very much. You've certainly earned the beer all two tonight, because that was a wonderful talk. You went into a lot of detail, and we could feel for you in many situations. So well done, and I don't know, maybe we look forward to you doing your next one.
We'll see.
So in the meantime, let's give a round of applause. Now, society members know that you don't get away until after the commercial. So, our next talk is on Tuesday the 12th of November on the Scottish Women's Land Army by Jessica Evershed. There are copies of our full programme downstairs by the box office, plus a membership application form if you haven't joined already. So I'd like to wish you safe home.
You were spot on. You were spot on. So,
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
when will it be on YouTube? Well, it's being recorded right now, so.